This is a podcast by Marco Buritica, Jake Gustiniani, John Largo, and Gianfranko, and we're answering the questions and giving out our opinions.
Alright, so the first question is, Joe Pocock and Al Ulbrichtsen each stand as somewhat mythic figures in The Boys in the Boat. However, they were very different men with very different relationships to the boys. Discuss their differences in leadership style and their roles within the University of Washington's growing establishment. What about Pocock enabled him to connect with Joe Rance on such a personal level? Would Largo start?
To answer the first question, the difference between both their leaderships, I think Pocock was much more lenient towards the boys rather than Al, who wanted them to do more than just be good at role. Al wanted them to be good in education, their manners, and everything. Make them well-rounded men. George wanted them to become something they wanted to be, and was much more nice to the boys.
I agree that George was a bit more laid back to him because he understands all the problems that Joe went through in his life.
Yeah, because George himself used to be a very poor kid and with nothing grit, which is something we talked about in our English class a while ago. He managed to bring himself from the bottom to the top. He managed to become something Joe wanted to be as well. Joe was invented by his father. Joe was invented by his father on multiple occasions. His mother died. Yet Joe managed to get to a college at the University of Washington and be on this team.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how Joe can do that.
Yeah, and I noticed... Oh boy. It also makes sense to me that since George had been through the same thing
let's
as
talk
Joe...
about Al then. Al was a bit more strict towards them.
Yeah, and since George has been through the same things as Joe, it makes more sense that he wanted to be less of an adult figure to him and more of a friend figure to him. To be there to him and push him to be what he can be.
Yeah, Al was like Mr. Del George from the gym. He always pushing us to do our best.
Just for that, all the rants.
Yeah.
Because what grit is actually is it's a powerful motivation to achieve their respective objectives. I believe George wanted Joe to have that grit, to have that motivation, to have that to reach that objective. I don't think I don't think Joe would have made it that far without George.
Yeah, having a friend by your side is definitely a big part of what makes us.
Yeah, especially one that can understand you.
Yeah. Doing things alone, you don't really get that far because one perspective isn't usually enough. Especially if it's a depressed perspective. You always need that positive perspective.
Yeah, you gotta keep moving forward. Can't look at the past.
Yeah. I'm not saying Al was a bad guy though. He was the best coach ever. He was just worried that he was gonna lose his job. He was a very good coach. It said so in the book. He was a very good coach, but he was losing to his rivals every single year, and because of that, he wanted to stress the importance of winning, but in different perspectives, different angles, teach them in different ways, and that's what made them very different.
Basically, it seemed like Al was more in it for the glory of winning, while George was more in it for the children themselves, the adults themselves, the people, the rowers.
Yeah. And I think losing to all of his rivals, Al got really anxious. So maybe that's why I kept on pushing Joe.
That makes a lot of sense. Send one other person to fail if they don't have to.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
think we, I think we answered the question very fairly. You guys want to move on to the
Think
second
so.
question now?
yeah, let's move on to the second question. Well, actually, let me...
That's good.
Okay, let's go.
Alright.
Jake, want to read it?
Sure thing. So, question 2. Later in the book, it is noted all along Joe Rance had figured that he was the weak link in the crew, page 326, but that he found out much later in life that all the boys felt the same way. Why do you think that was? And why do you suppose that they didn't reveal this to each other until they were old men? Who would you categorize of the weakest, and who do you consider the strongest, and why? So, if I could start off with this, that definitely is like something we all do.
Yeah, I think
Usually
everyone
we'll
sees
see
themselves the
ourselves
weakest
as-
link. Sometimes.
That way, you can build yourself up. Because if you see yourself as the weakest, you'd want to work more on yourself. Hopefully, if you rise above your peers, that make them feel the same way, and you all kind of rise up together. And also, I don't think he would really tell. It makes sense that they wouldn't tell each other because admitting that you're not the best, even though it's like everyone thinks it, most people think it, it's somewhat of a common thing. It shows like a type of openness, weakness almost, because you're telling everyone I don't think highly of myself. So that would definitely be a very brave thing for someone to do.
Yeah, and I also think...
Most likely why they did as adults.
I think, like, whenever you, like... If you tell someone, hey, like, I don't think I'm really this good, that's probably putting more stress and weight onto the other person's shoulders, so, like, work harder for you then.
That is true. I believe Joe thought he was this way actually because more of the pressure on himself. I thought he felt like he was weakest link because of his family and where he stood in compared to his other kids.
Well, I mean, that does make sense.
His
But,
family history, he might be ashamed of it or something.
yeah. But then, even with that, people with much, like, more fortunate becomings, there's a big chance they could feel the same way too. They could think, oh, my parents, they did everything for me. Now what am I? I'm just kind of like here. And it's kind of like on all levels.
Yeah.
I want to bring back to the main point where when they were rowing, all of them. Okay, so even though one of them was rowing efficiently at their best, they always thought that they were the weakest link in the boat because when they looked in front of them and looked back towards them, people were rowing the boat. They seemed to row their boat more faster than them. But in reality, the people who were in front of them and in back of them were actually at the same speed and thinking the same way that they were the slowest person on the boat, that they were thought they were weakest link, that they thought they were the weakest link. What I'm trying to say is, I believe that there's no strongest person there. If anyone had to be strong, it had to be Joe, because we got to know him more than any other crew member.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think it's definitely more of a, if everyone thinks they're the weakest link, then everyone's going to be at their 110%, which is why everyone was so equal in the Olympics.
That's why our American team won in the Olympics. Because even though we were given the worst track, because Germany hated us at the time, we somehow won, and that was because our team knew each other. Our U.S. team knew each other that well that we actually
We're able to come through.
Yeah.
come through. Yeah, thank you. That bad obstacle Germany gave us on purpose, and that's why we won. I believe in teamwork, and I believe that with unity, that Joe is able to accomplish something better than himself. Like I I would not be the same person. I would, if put in the same situation, I would not be Joe, because I would not have enough grit to get through everything he went through.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that either.
Even though it's not like a question, I definitely feel like the main like ideal of this story is that perseverance is key, and even no matter where you're from, if you're from like the poorest family to like the president's son or something, no matter what, as long as you have the perseverance to keep on trying, that it doesn't really matter because eventually you get there. It's better than starting off there and losing all of it because you couldn't care less.
Yeah, like no one would ever want to be at the top and like fall all the way down to the bottom.
That is true. We saw that with the boat situation. Nobody wanted to feel like they were the weakest link.
And I think he also won because in the book, I think it mentioned that how when he was teams with the sophomore team, he was horrible because he knew no one. But then when he was teams for senior year, he knew all the people and they won.
Because when he was a senior, he knew everybody there.
Yeah.
So he was working, and he was a very social man. He was not a very social man. I take that back. He was just he just worked a lot. He grew to learn his team and who they were. Other outside the boat, and I think that's why they won. And that's right. And thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. That's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way everyone can like move as one because they know each other. They know their averages for rowing and such. That's all I mean, by the way. It's fine.
Okay.
It's okay. It's nice.
I think we did pretty well.
Yep, I think that covered all of it.
I don't want to give this question just popped out of my head. What do you think of Joe? What do you think about Joe? Like, as a character, what do you think about him? Like, this is an off question. I know it's in the podcast, but I wanted to ask just to keep us talking about something.
Personally, I see him as more of a what an average fairy tale would want to be. Someone who starts off basically as low as possible and works as hard as they can to get back up to the top. Show everyone, hey, here I am. You know.
Yeah, I think Joe's really strong because if I went through the stuff that he went through, I probably wouldn't have done everything he did.
But you wouldn't, or you would?
I wouldn't probably because having your parents leave you 2 times and like being forced to work in the mines by yourself, that's like really depressing.
Very dramatic.
Yeah.
Not to mention his mother dying on him.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you guys for being in this conversation with me. I actually found some consideration in this.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as the assignment seemed.
Yeah.
Should we end it now?
I think that's all.
Yes.
Here's to the 100.
And I
Bye,
end.
Giuliano.